So, welcome to our next session. And last week we were going through the game Morphy against Hampton from 1858. It was an Evans Gambit, so we'll continue with that. Nonetheless, I wish to answer an inquiry from a student about what is the Grob. So, what is the point of the Grob? Now, just retreat that move. The Grob is invented, or was first played probably by Henri Grob, who was a Swiss guy, and he used to play g4, which horrifies everybody because castling is so embedded in the chess culture that people automatically think you're going to put your king onto the king's side by castling. So by banging your pawn up to g4, you're putting two fingers up to the rule of castling. And the rule of castling was invented because of the struggle for the center. And if you open the game with 1 e4, just to show you that sort of move, many of you will be familiar with this move, or even possibly 1 d4, your king is immediately exposed. And there's no way that 1 e4 would be the most popular move if castling wasn't invented. They would have had flank openings like g4 or b4 would have been far more popular than they are now. And now, but the accusation is that g4 not only wrecks the defenses of the white king, it also neglects the center. It doesn't develop a piece. It doesn't put a pawn in the center. These are the ideas we get from beginners' books. But really, the beginners' books that are written are often only skin deep. They give you some good general ideas, sort of playing chess by numbers, like painting by numbers. But they often leave you high and dry as to understanding why you're making these moves. I'm going to give you an illustration from a well-known opening called the Sicilian Najdorf. Let's just look through this game. You can say it's got nothing to do with the Grob. You would be so wrong. That is the Sicilian. And now white plays the main line, knight to there, and black plays his pawn to d6, and white now opens up the center. Black takes, and so does white. Now, admittedly, white has moved the knight twice in the center, but he was capturing something, and he's actually opened up his d file. His bishops have got good lines. His development looks better. He has more control of the center. Let's see how this game continues. We haven't got to the Najdorf variation yet. And as for Najdorf, he was a Argentinian, or actually Polish, refugee grandmaster who went off to Argentina around about the time of the Second World War. Really famous grandmaster. Very strong player. Now, his variation starts here. It's an oddity. Let's see. Can you guess how the Najdorf begins? This question is only for people who do not know what the Najdorf is. Okay, the Najdorf actually begins with this move. Pawn to a6. Now, what on earth are they playing that move for? It's on the edge of the board. It doesn't develop a piece. It doesn't put a pawn in the center. But there is a serious reason, because black intends next move, I think, to move his pawn up to e5. Let's see what happens if black tries to make that move straight away. Supposing he moves his pawn to e5. Now, that has the disadvantage of weakening the d5 square, because that square, d5, cannot be guarded by a black pawn. But it does gain a tempo against the white knight. Now, the problem with e5 is that black can get into some difficulty if white then checks black here. Now, a lot of you will think a check is a great thing to do and is almost checkmate, but not the case. It's not the problem that white has checked, it's the consequences. Let's say black plays bishop to d7 to block the check. White possibly takes the bishop, and then black takes with the knight. Yeah, but now the black structure looks less inviting than before. He's lost his good bishop. He's left with his bad bishop. His bad bishop is the one on f8, because that is blocked by its own pawns, which are rigidly stuck in the middle of the board. White can then also settle on the f5 square. So if you're looking from the point of view of weak squares, you can see the relationship between the black pawns in the center on d6 and e5 and the mobility of the black bishop on f8. What black would have liked to have kept was his other bishop. Now, if we go back to our position, yeah, so you can see that this move, pawn to a6, has got a lot of importance into the development of the pieces and the control of the center, because even though black plays a pawn on the edge, by stopping that check, that maybe stops the swapping, the exchange of the bishops. So that edge move of the pawn has considerable relevance to the fight in the center. So if anyone says the Grob or b4, the orangutan or the St. George are bad openings because they neglect the center, just you consider that the whole board is the center. It's only 8 by 8, you know. This is therefore a move on the edge can have enormous importance on the center. So we'll leave our discussion of the Grob, because I haven't actually shown you anything except the first move. And next week I might show you some other ideas of the Grob. I hope that's been illuminating. Now let's go back to the beginning. And we're going to continue with our question and answer game, which was Morphy against Hampton. Right, now that game began with yep. Okay, and we're all familiar with this position from the Gyoko piano, and Morphy plays the gambit, because in those days gambits were incredibly popular. The King's Gambit was probably the major opening around about the mid-19th century. If you saw an opening book, probably 80% of it would be devoted to the King's Gambit. Not so nowadays, but the Evans Gambit was also incredibly popular. So here, white plays the move b4, sacrificing a pawn in order to gain more time to occupy the center and gain control and possibly an attack. And there's a lot of sense in this gambit. We remember that the very first move that white and black have played has exposed the kings. Both the kings by e4 and e5 are exposed. So if white or black can get in quickly, then maybe the king can be put in jeopardy. The Evans Gambit certainly has not been refuted, so I will certainly recommend it that you try it. Let's see how the game continued. White's gaining a tempo on the bishop, which retreats to the center. Probably back to a5 is more popular. And white, cognizant of the exposure, look at these words I use, it shows I'm educated. Cognizant of the exposure to his own king, does not advance in the center quite yet. So he tucks his king away. With castling, white comes out, black comes out with his knight, and now white attempts, I think, his avalanche. No, actually, does black come out with his knight? No, he doesn't. I need to retract that. Can I retract that? I think, in fact, yeah, the machine tells me the right move. Yeah, black's solidifying his center with d6. Good move. But white charges forward. White, no, actually, I can just click. White charges forward. See, white, Morphy, is a man in a hurry. He wants to get his action in quick. Black takes, white takes. The bishop has to retreat. If you don't know why it has to retreat, then you need to get some of my books, Beginner to Winner or the book on UFO. So here white has his marvelous center, but he continues to develop. Yeah, out comes the knight, and now black plays his provocative move, knight f6. Yeah, and that is really asking for it. But if black just needs one more move, and he will be as safe as houses. And you know what move that is. It's going to be to castle. Now Morphy doesn't want him to get that one move. So he attacks with his pawn on the knight. And black now is probably hoping that Morphy is simply going to take the pawn back with his pawn. Yeah, let me do that. No. So I have to take the last move back. Ah, yes, I see. So, yes. What he's hoping is that Morphy will automatically recapture the pawn. And what do you think black would do in that situation? Yes, quick as a flash, black would swap the queens. Queen takes queen. That's what he would play. Bang, 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 bang. And all his troubles are over because the queens are off the board. Queen being the best attacking piece. And even I think black here has pretty strong advantage. Extra pawn is an attack on the f2 square. Now Morphy has no intention of allowing that to happen. He's far too experienced an attacking player. So let's see what happens after we get black taking the pawn, and Morphy plays this very significant move, which is to move his bishop to a3, and that prevents the black king from castling. So the black king is now trapped in the center because a king cannot castle through check, because the king on e8 would be moving over the f8 square, which is attacked by the bishop on a3. So if black can't castle, his king is at the mercy of the white forces in the center. So white is quite happy to lose a few pawns, particularly as the pawns get in the way of the attack, in order to trap the king. So here we continue with this game, and black's actual move was now to play his bishop to g4. Okay, so now just pause for a minute and decide what move you would play for white in this position. It's white to play, what would you choose? So this is our question 10. Q10. Now Morphy's choice was queen to b3. Now some of you might have been a bit worried about that move because it would allow black to double the white pawns on the king side. But we don't have to be concerned about such minor considerations. Let's see what happens if black does that. What do you think white would do now? Well, congratulations if you noticed that white can now checkmate in 2 moves. And the next move would be queen to e6, because the bishop has gone to f3 and is no longer guarding the e6 square. So if you chose Morphy's move, which was queen b3, we'll give you 10 points for that. So queen b3 gets 10. There are also some other good-looking moves. Let's see. Yeah, so we've got some other good-looking moves. Let me see. Yes, we'll give you 5 points for knight g5. That's certainly imaginative, because if you play knight g5, quite often these dramatic encounters you can sacrifice your queen by breaking the pin. Bear that in mind in this sort of opening. Normally you think, oh, this is crazy, I'm losing my queen, but it's a common motif. Now here, white actually, unfortunately, gets no more than a draw by perpetual check. But, you know, at least it's been a way for you to show off and show that you can sacrifice a queen. And maybe later you'll sacrifice it and win. So we have to start small. So knight g5, I like that move. What else could white play? I guess I think rook e1, we would give that also. Give rook e1 4 points. Again, I only give 2 points for d takes e5 because that gives the chance for black to exchange the queens. And I'd give 3 points for d5, but that essentially is blocking the position because you're not exchanging pawns, so you're not opening up the position. So let's go on with the game, where white plays queen b3, and black is threatened by this devastating check on f7. And these gambits are a very good way of improving your attacking skills because they have these basic concepts of attacking f7. Now black plays an interesting defense. I thought he might play queen d7, but he didn't. Queen d7 would probably lead to difficulties after knight takes e5. Black plays bishop to h5. Very economical way of defending f7. Now, it looks to me though white's next move is pretty cut and dry. He wants, I would say, to gain a tempo on the black position. So I would think he would take on e5 with the pawn. Yep, that's what he did. And I think black's now got to move the knight somewhere. Yep, he moved his knight to g4. Now, this question 11. Let's see how good your attacking skills are. What move would you choose for white here? We got black completely on the run. One of the strongest moves, the obvious move, is rook to d1, and I think that's what white played. So here, we've cleared the back row, we've connected the rooks. Remember we talked about Morphy and the box of chocolates. So all the chocolates are coming out of the box, and the hardest ones to get out are the rooks in the corner. And if you remember that famous Monty Python sketch from many years ago, this was about getting the sardines out of the can. And there's a speech by a vicar who says, life is very like a tin of sardines. There's always that little bit in the corner that you just can't get your hands on. And is there a little bit in the corner of your life that you can't get your hands on? So you can look at this with the rooks in the corner. They are like the sardines in the end of the can that you're trying to get out. By connecting the rooks and castling, this rook can immediately come into the middle of the board. So here, rook ad1, fantastic developing move, showing your total mastery of the rules of the opening. So rook ad1 will give you 10 points for that. Other moves don't look so strong. Though e6, I think e6 looks good. Let's give you 8 for that. h3, I think, is a bit of an irrelevance. Yeah, so we just give you 4 for that. Rook ad1. The queen is seriously embarrassed. The best you can do is to go to c8. Now let's see your next choice for white. You have a strong position, but can you exploit it? What would you do here? Well, I think you might have played knight g5, which certainly looks logical because you're attacking the f7. I'm going to give you 5 points for that. I think black could quite possibly just take the pawn on e5 with one of his knights, thus guarding f7. Morphy just ploughed on by playing e6, which looks desperately bad for black, because if he takes the pawn, the bishop crashes in on e6, and the queen has to go into the corner, resembling one of those little sardines which have got into the corner of the can. So e6 was played, 10 points for that crushing blow, and all black could do was to try and keep the position closed. So e6, black played pawn to f6. That's the black's best chance. If he can stop the files being opened, even the pawn on e6 is protecting the black king, because white cannot check on the e line because of his own pawn in the way. So question 13, what's your move for white now? How would you continue this game? Well, this is a very curious position. We look to have an overwhelming game. We have the king in the middle, but there's no obvious way to deliver the decisive blow. Rook d7 looks an obvious move. Rook d7 will give you 8 points for that. I think then you could possibly double the rooks or take the pawn on g7. It looks good, though there's nothing absolutely clear after rook d7. Morphy chooses a completely unexpected way of winning this game. And so study Morphy's games and try and work out his moves. They aren't always the obvious ones. Morphy's next move was to play his queen to b5. And you may think, what on earth is he up to? Queen b5. I'll give you 12 points. What is Morphy up to? Is he attacking that knight on c6? Well, it seems to be defended. No, just look across the board. You can see he's taking a swipe at the bishop on h5, which looks quite irrelevant because clearly the bishop can just move away, which it did. So the bishop moved to g6. Okay, now question 14. How does Morphy follow up what looked like he was just lashing out at some piece placed on one side of the board? So how did Morphy follow up this move, queen b5? Well, Morphy applies Chinese torture here. He sees the critical weakness in the black position, because you look at the black position, all of it looks bad. But nonetheless, what's the worst part of the position? Morphy unerringly, he discovers what is the weak spot and he puts the pressure on that. So if you played the move bishop to d5, you give yourself 12 points for that as well. Here, the bishop and the queen are threatening the knight at c6, and there's very little for that black can do to avoid checkmate. The only thing that can defend his knight on c6 is he could move his knight from g5, sorry, on g4. He could move that to e5, but then white would just take it off. So there's really nothing that can come to the aid of the knight at c6. So these two very quiet moves actually demolish black's position completely. So well done if you found these moves. It shows you have a keen eye for chess playing. If you chose other moves, give yourself 6 points for other moves, because I'm sure a lot of these moves would have been good. I think 8 points again for rook d7, yeah, but 6 points for other moves. But of course 12 points for the most accurate move, which was bishop to d5. And this on move 17, black had no alternative but to resign the game, because he's threatened with, let's say black plays anything. This is what black is threatened with. Bishop takes c6 check, pawn takes c6, queen takes c6 mate. And here Morphy has shown not only how to get his own pieces out of the box chocolates, but he's also shown how to trap the enemy king in the middle. And we look at black's development. He's still got his rooks in the corner. He never had time to cast. Right, so end of that session, and just add up your points and we'll see what grade you get. Now for the match games. So let's see, what color are we? Looks like I'm white against the manager. Okay, so okay, I will play the Grob, thus decisively weakening my king situation. He's played d5, which now attacks my pawn at g4. I could sacrifice, but quite often I play positionally with h3. I wouldn't play f3 because that weakens the diagonal to my king. Now here he's played e5, put pressure on his center, and he's played c6. Now, I quite often play this particular line, and I don't always have success with it. I'll try it one more time. Okay, a kind of hybrid Queen's Gambit. So he's played e4. Okay, let's see if I can make any progress with this line. So we have an attack on the black pawns in the center, and we're trying to now he's played the check on b4. I don't think that's the strongest, but let's see. I suppose it does actually gain time for development, but I suppose I can gain time to attack his center, because I'm putting pressure on d5 and on his bishop at c3. Sorry, b4. He's played a5. Okay, I guess we should. This is a curious thing. I think we'll still play a3. Now we've got to take with something. Let's take with the pawn. And he's castled. Now, can we play this positionally? Probably not. We can try. I need time to think this one through. But I've only got 10 minutes, so tricky moment. Okay, I think, gosh. Now, gosh, I'm thinking a lot here. This is a problem. I have a plan, little boys and girls. Okay, I have a plan. I know it's rubbish, but it's my plan. What I'm trying to do is dominate the black squares. But I need time. And quite possibly he's not going to give me that time. The move I fear is he didn't play it. No. I've kind of feared f5, but this maybe looks better because he's stopping my bishop getting to and he's trying to get his knight to reach h4. Okay, well, I think we're going to play our pawn to g5. Right. This looks a bit crazy. There's method in my madness, except it is madness. F5. Now his, okay, that's looking very interesting. Okay. Okay. Let's hit the knight. Something's got to give. Me or him. What's going to happen now? Position. F3. Nearly. Okay. Okay, we're gonna just take that. Maybe I shouldn't have. Could have taken the knight. Could have been better. Now he's taken with the pawn. I've got to take with something. Should I take with the bishop or take with the knight? I take with the knight. It does develop a piece, doesn't it? Yep. Right. Now he gets a killer check. Okay, I've got to do something probably. What should I do here? Yeah, okay. Time to move the king. Okay, I better develop my bishop. Come on. Bang. Bang. Now he's developed that. Develop the rook. Yeah, okay. What a ridiculous position. Okay, let's try E1. Queen F7. Good idea. Oh, he has a threat of. Got a little threat here, hasn't he? Are we worried? Yeah. What should we do? Again. Okay, we'll try. I don't know if this is going to work. Okay. We haven't quite developed his queen side yet. He might take the knight. So that might cost him his queen. Interesting. Queen to F8. Okay. Let's see. Now again threatening something. So we got 4 minutes. So let's play that. He wants to play. Right. Yeah. Tricky one. I better make a quick decision here because we're running out of time. Okay. Let's play the to c7. Still have more pieces to develop. Bishop g4. Right, let's try knight e5. There he gets rook takes f2 check, but is that mate? Okay. Now, pity. Knight to a6. Notice that. I'm not sure where the knight's going. Ooh. Knight to a6 is good. Down to b. Well, I'm not quite so sure. He could be in trouble. Okay, so if we take this pawn, we have a little plan that works. e8. Okay. Good move. Right, I think we're gonna take another pawn. Nice knight on e5. Looks quite strong. Yeah, I think it's on like bishop takes d5 check. Maybe something else after that. A good move. Okay, we would have to take that, I think. Takes rook. Okay, what's his shock to larger? Ah, he has that move. Help. I finished. I missed that. Should have played bishop takes d5 check. Okay, I think we only have one move here. Oops. Okay, what's happening now? Queen checks. We have to go here. Queen checks again. I've got one move here. Two checks again. Oh, what am I going to do? Shall I take the draw? Take my rook with check. I think I'll have to go there. Okay. Okay, shall we offer draw? Okay, how do you offer a draw?
Just repeat. Oh.
Okay, let's just repeat. Okay, draw. Okay, so yeah, rook takes e5. That was a good defense by him. I think if I play bishop takes g5 check, that'd have been okay. Maybe not, because the king. Yes, rook takes e5 maybe save the game for him. All right, so now let's go. Well, let's play our Grob here as well, as it's Grob day. Okay. And is this the same opponent? No? Okay. Let's play bishop g7. 4. Shall we play this? Okay. This is a little extravagant, isn't it? To say the least. d5. Okay. Save our pawns. Okay. So black has a grip on the black squares, but white of course has the space. I can't believe that. I think he's what's called having a laugh. You cannot get away with this. No way. This will not happen. This parrot is dead. No, this guy cannot have a grade of 2035. Right. Okay. We're happy. Come on. Two pawns are not worth it. Queen f3. Right. He has a threat of mate. Stop the mate. He's castle. Well, he's going to lose some more stuff now. Okay. That's called a skewer, I think. Queen to g3. Let's take the rook. Okay, he took with the king. Ready, possibly the castle at some point. Okay, now we're just going to swap the queens because I think we're a rook ahead. Okay, let's take the queen. Now occupy the square. Now let's exchange some more. This is primitive chess. Exchange the pieces if you're ahead. I can't believe this guy's playing 2035. Really? Where is it? How do you find the... Ah, right. That would explain it. Because I'm looking at the last game, aren't I? What's he doing? Is he thinking?
Is that to do with draw?
Sorry.
You don't want to draw?
No. No, he must learn from his mistakes. If I offer him a draw, he'll think that he had a good position. The answer is no. Right. Has he noticed he's a rook then? Doesn't matter. I suppose he's got kind of 3 very dangerous pawns on the king side, because they could be tripled soon. But they're not actually even passed. A bit late to start thinking now, isn't it? Should have done that before you sacrificed your bishop for 2 pawns on move 5. Has disconnected and the game will auto resign in 53 seconds. Okay, let's wait for 53 seconds and then I should get my victory. Hooray! 2100. Okay, so I get 6 points for that. Okay, so thank you very much for attending this display, and see you next week.